Hello, my name is Amy Prokopis, and I am an author of young adult novels like the science fiction novel, The Arena. My next book, the young adult urban fantasy, Guardians of the Sixth Gate, is out October 31st. Welcome to my channel. So I have tried several times to film this video. So I'm going to try yet again to explain all the phases of editing for me that I do. So a lot of authors will do this differently, although it's a lot of the same, maybe just in different organizational ways. Some people may print their draft. Some people may do everything digitally. I do a combination, but I'm going to show you what works for me so that if you're writing a book, maybe some of this will sound familiar, or maybe if you try it out, it will work for you. So I'm going to explain how I edit my books, and I'm going to show you guys a little differently than the way that I filmed it before. So we're going to try that out. So hope it's helpful. The first phase of editing for me is the self-edit. So that is when, after I've written draft one, I let the book sit for close-ish to a month, if I have the timeline for it. And then I come back to it, I print out the draft, and I read through it, trying to get as fresh a perspective as I can, as if I'm the reader and I don't know this book, even though I kind of do. I read it and I don't make any changes at this point, but I do make notes. So let me show you a couple versions of this. So here are some early drafts. I think there might even be one more printed draft. So I said I print out the draft. This page is flipped over because I didn't want to reveal anyone. This is the newest draft that I've done, but as you can see, because I try to always date them, this was the absolute first draft I did a self-edit to. So while this might be one phase, this is the phase I usually repeat the most, meaning I'll be in this phase of rereading my drafts, making notes, sometimes several times. So what I do, I print it off. So here's the very early draft, and I read through it, and the goal is to read it just like anybody else does. So I don't make changes or edits as I go, but you can clearly see I make tons of notes. So I'll flip through it. I make notes in the margins. You can see them here. So all of those are little things I need to change. I make sticky notes. I usually develop a system for each draft I edit. So these big tabs mean something, usually plot-wise, that I need to come back to and fix. That way I can mark each of these plot points and not be taken out of the story while I read it. So this is the fastest way to do it. I usually will print this out and I devote typically a weekend to the entire read through. So all I'm doing is reading and making notes. I don't make any changes. I don't even make plot suggestions for change. I just make notes. So I will do that first in phase one. So of course, after I've done my notes in the self-read, I do go back through them page by page in this copy and on the digital copy, and that's when I make the changes or address the plot holes, like those stickies that I've suggested for myself. So this is when I actually fix it. So at the end of this phase, after I've read through, made notes, and then made my changes, then I have draft 2, which begins phase 2 of editing for me. So phase 2 is what I call the beta edits, which means I've edited the draft into draft 2, and then I send it off to my beta readers so that I can get feedback from actual people with different experiences than me, different likes, different interests, and that's a huge, huge help in developing the book because it's the first time you really get it to readers. So I send out to several different beta readers, and I always send a digital copy. So this is where the book editing process becomes digital for me, it's in phase 2 with the betas. So what I do after I've developed draft 2 in a Word document, which is how I write my books, I upload the Word document or I copy it into a Google Doc, and I use the same Google Doc for all of my beta readers. So they're all in one document. The reason why I do this is because rather than having to sort through several documents to get all of my feedback, using the comment feature in Google Docs, I can compile it all into one document, so it's all in one place. I think it's also helpful as a reader because maybe you get to a point in the story and somebody that is beta reading already left a comment there and you don't agree with the comment, or maybe you have a suggestion that's different than what they suggested that you can build off of. So this is where it becomes collaborative. And if I develop several different Google Docs for each beta reader, it's not collaborative anymore. It's just one person's opinion getting back to me. So I like to do it that way. That way I can see what everybody's consensus is and what they might think, disagree on, or if maybe there's something that they all agree on being better, or maybe there's a part of the book that's not so great and they can give me feedback that way. So just for fun, here is my Google Drive. I make a folder for every single one of my books, and I put all of these folders in a bigger folder for series. So this is the folder just for Guardians of the Sixth Gate. If I scroll through it, you can see that there are several documents. A lot of them are different drafts. This one that has Word next to it is the final draft of Guardians of the Sixth Gate. It is the one where I've collected all of my beta reader feedback and gathered all of that data. So after I get the beta reader feedback, I give them usually a week or two to read through the document, make their final notes, give me their final opinion of the whole book. And then what I do is I go through that one Google document where all of their notes are compiled, and I open up my final draft 2, and I go through and I make changes as I feel they need to be made. Sometimes there aren't any changes or very few changes that I make, because sometimes things are just based on opinion, or maybe a suggestion, which has happened from a beta reader, is something that is actually really important to keep in the story because it builds on in future books. So I go through that, I make my changes based on the beta reader feedback, and that gives me draft 3 of my book. And then we move into phase 3 of edits. Phase 3 of editing my book is the professional edit. So you've noticed that I've done a lot of work up to this point. In some of those phases, like phase 1, I even repeat. So the book has gone through several different edits by several different other people before I hire a professional. And the reason for that is because I don't want them to be spending all of their time editing my book on really small things like misspellings or I forgot a comma here. I want them to be looking at the bigger picture, the whole book, stylistic things, structure, as well as those nitty-pitty little details. But this makes it so that they can use their time a lot more effectively and do a lot more for you. So I do all those edits first. And then in phase 3, it's pretty much hands off, and it all goes to my professional editor for professional edits. For those professional edits, I hire my editor and my cover designer from Readsy. Readsy is a really cool writing service. It's where a lot of professional editors, book marketers, even designers, and you can even find videographers on here that are all here for the book community to help develop the best books that we can. So this service is free. You can get an account for free, and then all you're doing from there is hiring the freelancers that you need to polish and develop your book. So for me, the freelancers that I hire from Readsy are my cover designer and my editor. And so I'll hire my editor, and you can upload your book into here with all of the details, and then when you send the book off to a professional, it pitches it to a degree for you. You can add little details here and there, and then if they want to work with you, they will submit a response with a price for hire, and then you just start collaborating from there. So that's where I go for all of my editing needs. I've loved Readsy. I've had really good experiences with the 2 books that I've used it for. And so from here, the book is in my editor's hands. So once the professional edit is done, the document gets sent back to me on Readsy. I download the copy and it gives me all of my editor's notes, the feedback, there's comments in the margins, usually all kinds of feedback. Believe me, even if you have done all of those steps before, phase 1, phase 2, if you've done those phases several times, your editor will still find something. That's just the way that it goes. Having a different set of eyes, especially a very highly specialized set of eyes like a professional editor, they find things that you don't necessarily think of or maybe not even know to consider. So highly recommend spending money on the editor. So once I get the edits back, I download all the documents like I said, and just like I did with the betas, I sit down with the editor's comments and then I open up my final document and I edit the book using my editor's comments into the final draft, which is draft number 3. But do keep in mind, sometimes this is actually draft 6 or 7, because if you repeat those phases, you have multiple drafts. But for me, that's the end of phase 3. I have the final document, and then from there, it's all interior work, cover design, you upload, and then you're done. So at this point, the writing part is mostly over. There's not usually a lot I change from here unless something big and overarching changes with the book. From here, the writing part's done and you're on to the fun part, which is all the cover, the marketing, doing book promotion, talking about your book a ton, all of that. So that is pretty much what happens from the end of phase 3 on. So that is it as far as it goes with editing my book. So that's how I edit my books. Like I said, sometimes I'll repeat phases. So sometimes this process, while it's those same 3 phases in that order, sometimes I repeat them if the book is really long, or maybe it needs a lot of work, or I change my mind about some details in the plot. But for the most part, it is those 3 phases every single time I edit a book. So that's it. Thank you guys for following along. I hope that was really helpful to somebody if you are struggling with the editing phase. I know it's not every writer's favorite part of writing a book. A lot of us dislike it a lot. And this is the easiest way that I have developed for myself to tackle the process and still keep it kind of fun and interesting. So that's how I edit. Thank you guys for following along with me. Make sure that you like this video. Leave me a comment below if you do some different steps in your editing process. Let me know, because I'm always looking for ways to make it better for myself. And as always, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.